Okay, I've turned the camera on. Today is December 7, 2021. And as I explained, I turned the camera on so I don't have to worry about taking notes so much. I'm meeting here with Deborah Irwin, and we just talked about a couple things, other things, changing the demand and dismissing the need complaints. But the main reason I wanted to meet with you today was to get a better handle on knowing you, what your background is and how you got to be who you are, and how it affects you on a day-to-day basis now going forward. But mainly about kind of a biography of you, all right?
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. What's your date of birth?
10/12/67.
Where were you born?
Lodi, California.
How long did you live in California before you left?
Long enough for my brothers to be born, about 15 months.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit longer, but about that.
So, what are your parents' names?
Alice Fitzgerald and Evan Evans.
Okay, and is Fitzgerald her maiden name or current name? Or?
Current name. She
Current.
went back to it after they divorced.
Okay. So, and again, your mom's first name is Alice?
Alice.
And your dad is what?
Evan.
Evan.
His is easy. Evan Evans.
Evan Evans.
Yes.
That is easy. All right. Let's start at the beginning with your mom. What year was she born?
You know, I have no idea. That's terrible.
I won't tell anybody. Don't worry about it.
She's
Roughly.
21 years older than my sister, so she's right 76.
She's 76 now?
Yes.
We could do the math, but I'm not going to try that one off the top of my head. And
Dad's 2 years older than her.
so he's 78. Okay. And you were born in Lodi, California.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your siblings. What's the name of your oldest sibling?
Shelley.
Shelley, and how old is she?
She's...
Or what year was she born?
You're killing me with the math. She's 4 years older than I am, so 67. So she'd been born in 63. Is that right?
Close enough.
Yeah. And then Melissa, who's 2 years younger than her.
65?
And
I'm
then
gonna go with
me,
ballpark. And your age today is?
51, 53.
Okay.
And then I have my brothers were twins, Kenneth and Robert. And they're 15 months younger than I am.
So 51.
Yeah.
We'll go with 51. All right. That's a big gap between Melissa and you.
Just 2 years. You wrote my age, not my year of birth.
That's what I thought we were talking about.
No.
All right, so how
Sorry.
old is
You
Shelley
said,
now?
when did they get born? When Shelley is 4 years older than me, so she's 57.
57.
So
All right.
Melissa's 2 years older than me, so
So she's 55.
yeah.
Okay, I got
There
the
you
answer.
go.
You're 53 years old.
My
Kenneth and
brothers
Robert are
will
both
be 50
51.
Yeah, they'll be 52 in January.
Okay. When you were born, you lived in Lodi, California.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you move to next?
The Seymour, Missouri.
Seymour. And what year did you move?
Well, I was 2, so 69.
Okay. How long did you live in Seymour?
Until I got married. So 87. So how many years is that? 20.
18.
I think I got married when I got married when I was 19.
So roughly 1987, you moved out of Seymour. And where'd you move when you got married?
In Springfield.
So 1987, you got married.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been in Springfield ever since.
Now we've been back and forth. We've lived in Springfield for a little while, and then we moved back to Seymour in the country for a little while, and then we lived in Marshfield for a couple of years.
So since 1987, you've always lived generally in this area.
Yeah, we
Springfield, Marshfield.
only a 2.5 year period where we lived in Meridian, Mississippi.
When was that?
that would have been in 2009, 2010, because we moved back here around 2012. So about 2.5 years.
Okay, why'd you move to Mississippi?
My husband's job.
Okay. And when you get, tell me your husband's name, please.
Howard.
Howard. How old were you when you met Howard?
19.
I thought that's when
We
you got married.
almost
Right away?
We got married almost a year after we first met.
Oh, nice.
And so I would have been 18, 19 right there when I met him, and then we got married. I turned 20, 30 days after we got married, so it was exactly a year almost.
And tell me about Howard's jobs or career or
He's an industrial painter.
industrial painter.
He painted trains here in Springfield for like 22 years. Well, the company changed hands several times, but then when they closed here in Springfield, that's when we moved to Meridian. And that is what he did in Meridian also, was trains. They pull the train cars in, and they rebuild them, repair them, sandblast them, and his job was to paint them, and sandblast and paint. And decal, whatever else needed to be done.
So when he moved to Meridian, he still painted trains? That was
Yeah, he
why.
was the supervisor down
Oh.
there.
And why did he leave here? What happened? The company got sold? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
the one here in Springfield closed their doors.
How'd you like living in Mississippi?
It wasn't that bad, but the job for him, we're a really close family. My sons and I and my husband, we moved together, even though my oldest one was old enough he could have not went with us. And the job just was terrible. He was working from like 4:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night every day. He had maybe Sundays off, maybe in the 2.5 years we were there. He lost like 40 pounds and 3 teeth from the stress. And it was awful. And
That is awful.
when it finally boiled down, we basically told him the money wasn't worth it. We were going home. If he wanted to go with us, that was great.
Really?
Yes! And we basically started over. My oldest son got a job here in Springfield first.
Well, let's go through with your kids, because I didn't take them. Your oldest is?
Zachariah is the oldest, Zech.
Z-E-C?
Chariah.
What's his date of birth?
90, 11, 14, 19. I can't think for a minute.
That's okay.
And then Benjamin. And he's August, what is that,
August 8th?
31st, 94.
Oh, August 31. 94? Okay.
And that's it. I just
All
have
right.
the 2 boys.
Do you call them their full names?
Sometimes, most of the time.
Most of the time? Okay.
Yeah.
You don't call them Ben, for instance?
Zach doesn't like to be called Zachary or anything. Sometimes he goes by Zeke.
Zeke.
Sometimes we shorten it to Zach. But he gets really particular. He doesn't like Zach. He likes Zek. I'm like, you're killing me, dude. Benjamin is either Benjamin or Ben.
Okay, sometimes Ben. All right.
He's so ornery when he went to kindergarten. We always call him straight Benjamin. We go to kindergarten, we go to meet his teacher, and she goes, what do you call you? Because we kept saying Benjamin. And she goes, the first day he was at school, she asked him, do you want to be called Benjamin or Ben? What do you want to get called? And he said, just Ben, plain old Ben. And we started laughing because he never got called Ben at home. It was Benjamin.
Benjamin, yeah. All right.
He's a character.
So, just give me some idea. Are Zeke and Ben local now?
Yes.
Okay. And what does Zeke do?
Works for Mercy.
What does he do?
And I think it's not customer service, it's like a data, he deals
Some
with
computer
insurances
job.
and stuff like that, yeah.
Oh, like bill processing and
Yes,
all that?
and yes. Our guy gets to work from home. Lucky dog.
And what does Benjamin do?
Benjamin paints with his dad. They are both house painters. Benjamin is married. Zach is not.
What's his wife's name?
Darian.
How
They've been
long
married
ago?
2 years.
2 years.
Mhm.
2019, give or take. Do they have any kids?
No. Probably won't ever do either. I wish I had babies, grandbabies. But not for a while.
Yeah, it's great to have, but you don't want to rush them.
That's right, and that's what I
Yeah.
told them. I said, I want them, I'm ready, but I'm not rushing you guys. Do
Yeah.
what you want to do.
You don't want to have kids before you're ready.
Yeah.
That's a bad situation. Okay, so Howard had the job here 22 years, moved to Mississippi, hated it, too much stress. After a couple of years there, you guys moved back. Where did he go next?
He started with FedEx. He drove for FedEx Ground. Then he was offered another position doing the trains and went to Kentucky for a little while. I did not go with him that time.
What year was that roughly? Just a ballpark.
I had already
is okay.
started here, so 2012, it would have been right around 2017.
So he worked roughly 5 years for FedEx, give or take.
Yeah, I guess. I didn't realize it was that long. Oh, you know what? I take that back. When we first moved back from Mississippi, he worked for Jackson Brothers for a really short period of time.
What's Jackson Brothers?
Jackson Brothers does the vending machines where they go around and refill and service. He was in the service department. He serviced the vending machines if they broke down. And then he went to FedEx.
And how long was he at Jackson Brothers? Roughly.
Less than a year. He didn't like it at all. So I'd say...
All right, 2012,
yeah,
2013.
yeah.
So 13 he started FedEx, give or take,
Yeah,
and he left there about 2017.
yeah.
And what'd you say you went to? What state?
He went to Kentucky
Kentucky.
to work for, it was actually, the company was owned by Caterpillar, but they had a rail tank car division, and he worked for them for just a short period. He wanted to go see, it was a new setup. They offered him a management position as a paint manager in that paint shop, and they were just starting. It was an old facility that they were trying to bring up to date. And I told him, you work 6 months. If you absolutely love it and you want this job, I'll quit mine and I'll come on. But there was just too many, they were shortcutting, and you just can't shortcut when you're doing that kind of dangerous work. And he didn't feel
It's
comfortable.
dangerous?
Yeah. And he just finally, at 6 months, he said, I'm not interested, and came home. And he's been painting houses ever since. Just wasn't safe. The things they were doing, the facility hadn't been used for many years, and there was a strike when it closed. And I guess the guys, right before they left, just destroyed everything. There was like, his office was, there was like 14 acres under building. Because, you know, they run their trains. There's like 3 or 4 different tracks that go through these buildings. So it's a huge. And he was on one end. Anyways, he didn't have running water or nothing in his office and the bathroom. And it was just awful.
Yeah.
And
So that was 2017, and he only stayed 6 months, then came back. So 2017-18 is when he started a house painting business?
well, he works for New Earth Painting. He's a subcontractor for New Earth Painting, is who he is. He's been doing that ever since,
So he's self-employed, basically.
pretty much.
And about when did Ben start working for Howard?
Right after he got married, so 2 years ago. And he works for himself too. Howard doesn't count him as an employee. He's a subcontractor with the same paint guy. Because Howard would probably strangle him if he worked for him.
Do they work on the same house at the same time?
Oh, yeah, yeah. But I'm just fortunate he's not Howard's
So it's
employee.
gotta be like this and not like this?
Yes.
I got it, alright.
They're two total different personalities. They always have been.
Yeah.
Ben's very laid back. I'll get to work when I want to be there, and I'll work late if I have to make up my time. Howard's like, I'm gonna be there at 6:30, and I'm gonna work till this time, and
And
he's
that's
like
it.
scheduled, Ben's like, oh, if I want Saturday off, I'm gonna take Saturday off. Howard's like, if the job needs to get done, you gotta work Saturday. They're just opposites. They're funny.
Alright, well, what high school did you go to?
Seymour High School?
Did you graduate?
Yes,
What year?
1986.
Any college or after school after that?
Work. Lots and lots of work.
Alright, let's take me through chronologically, if we could, the places you worked, unless there's like way too many of them.
Well, first of all, we lived on a dairy farm, so I worked my entire life on a dairy farm. As soon as that was done, I went to work when I graduated in Springfield.
When you said lived on a dairy farm, did you mean when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
All the way until I finally escaped.
Until what?
Until I escaped. No, dairy farming is really hard work.
I've heard that.
A
I have
lot.
no idea.
And we milked about 30 head of cattle twice a day. We had a 200-acre dairy farm. My dad was our milkman, so Dad drove a bulk milk route, and it had to go every day, just like you milk every day.
What is a bulk milk route?
It's when you milk cows, it goes into a big, huge tank, and then you have a milk truck with a big, huge tank that comes and pumps it off and brings it to the, like to Springfield, to the Kraft, or to, at the time it was Minham that we went to. So Dad would go around, drive around to all the different farmers, and you pick up their milk. And then when you're full or you're done for the day, you run that milk up to Springfield. For years, there was a milk plant in Seymour, but then they sold out and moved it to Springfield. So we worked really hard when we were kids. Then after high school, I got a job with Linda's Flowers here in Springfield. And they trained us.
Before we do that, let's talk a little bit, like say, during your high school years, tell me what a day was like for you.
Well, Mom would milk cows in the morning, so we would get up and do the extra chores, like if the hay needed to be fed, if it was winter. You always fed the calves, and whatever needed to be done outside before. Water, make sure the water tanks are full, things like that. And then we go to school. And then as soon as we got home from school, we got off the bus. Go get the cows. If Dad picked up the milk that day, you had to
What'd you say, go give the cow?
go get them. Because
Oh.
we had 200 acres. A lot of times they were down in the bottom. You'd have to bring them up to get them milked. If Dad picked up the milk that day, you had to scrub. You have to break the tank apart and scrub every little piece because milk gets everywhere and it's nasty. I don't even drink milk now.
You don't drink milk?
No.
It's sour in the island, huh?
Yeah. And
Too many
that's
bad memories?
yeah. Well, it upsets my stomach, but yeah. But you have to. Our system was a pressure system, so everything had to be airtight. Gaskets, everything was. So when you milk the cows, the milker goes on the cow, and there's a pressure that goes in and out that milks the cow.
Mm-hmm.
And then it pushes the milk through the milker, through the pipeline, and into the tank. And so all of those connections have little rubber gaskets in them. milk gets in that, you can't have that because you get dinged for having bacteria in your milk because it's tested every time they pick it up. So you got to break everything apart, take all them gaskets, soak them in this acid-based soap, scrub them, and then put it all back together. And you better put it back together. It's not going to seal tight. Ugh. But the tank was the nastiest because you had these big. Our tank had 3 holes in the top of it, and there's a gasket and then a metal lid, and they were like probably this big around. So you'd have to take the lid off, and it twisted off. You had like this. The lid went down, and then you had almost like a big bolt. Fly bolt that you had to twist down to put the pressure to seal it because it had to be airtight.
Right.
And so you'd have to take that gasket out and milk would be all up in the scrub it out too. So you'd have to wash the tank probably about every 3 days is when Dad would pick up the milk. Sometimes in the summer it was every other day. So when you come home from school, depending on if Dad left or not, you had to do that. We always milked in the evening because Mom did the chores in the morning, so we would do all alone. A lot of times Mom was gone doing a secular job.
Doing a secular job?
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
She used to haul Amish. They pay you to take them places because they don't have automobiles. So a lot of times she was gone when we came home. And Dad was always gone because he was on milk route. So we'd get the cows in, clean up the tank, bring them in, milk them out, feed the baby calves. Then you had to put the cows in the proper place. At night you don't let them go all the way down into the bottom because you want to be able to bring them up earlier in the morning. And then clean the barn out. And then hopefully have enough time to eat dinner and do your homework. And then get up the next morning and do it again.
Couldn't wait to get out of there.
Well, I have really bad allergies. So when I got a little older, they realized I couldn't be in the barn with all the cows, like milking. I would get a bloody nose and just get really, really sick. So Debbie got all the rest of the chores. And I could be in the barn if the cows weren't in there. So I'm the one that had to scrub the tank a lot of the times. And the milkers. And then feed the baby calves. Farts. Well, I mean, you got 2 arms, 2 bottles, and 8 baby calves, and they're sticking their head through a barbed wire fence, and they suck on everything. And you're trying to feed the 2, and you got one hanging on your arm, and one over here. They're a mess. And, at one point, I think I had 15 baby calves I was feeding that way, and I'm just like, I hate baby calves. No, they're cute, but oh my goodness, they get your clothes, and you got one sucking here and one sucking here, and you're trying to hold onto this bottle, and if they pull hard enough, the little nipple comes off and it pours milk in, you gotta start all, yeah.
So the sucking instinct is so strong that literally just...
Oh yeah, pant legs, arms, we used to put, like if you're feeding one and you got another one waiting, you put your fingers in his mouth so you can feed this one.
Just to placate. All right.
So, yeah, it was interesting.
So when you graduated high school, what was your first full-time job?
Linda's Flowers here in Springfield.
Where's that one? I'm trying to remember.
Linda's used to be on Battlefield, right there next to, Fremont. There's on one side, right there. Now it's moved out to Battlefield and Fort. They built a new building.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know the name.
Linda's Flowers, Carl's Tuxedos.
What were you doing there?
They trained me to be a floral designer.
And how long did you do that?
I worked for Linda almost 2 years.
And I forget what you said. You graduated high school 86?
86. So 87 was when I got married. It was right after I got married that Howard didn't want me working that much. But anyways,
So why'd you leave Linda's?
Howard and I just agreed. He didn't want me to work that much. He really wanted to be the sole provider and not have me work at all. He's kind of old-fashioned. That didn't last very long, but you know how that goes. And then I worked for Bass Pro for a very short period of time in their packing department. And I worked for them for less than a year.
When did you start? How long were you off completely? Ballpark.
Well, 87, 88 is when I left her. So I'd say I left Bass Pro and actually went to a factory sewing for a little while. So Bass Pro, I probably worked for like 6 months,
What year?
89.
That's all I needed.
Yeah, I'd say 89. And then I went to work for Endless Summer.
For what?
Endless Summer. It's not even in business anymore here in Springfield. It was a t-shirt sewing factory. And then from about 2000, well, I wasn't working in 2090 when I had Zachariah. I was off work for about 6 months before I actually got pregnant with Zach. And I got to stay home pretty much with the boys. I did odd jobs. I've done whatever it needed to do. I did when Zach was little, I was crossing guard for the Springfield school system because we lived in Springfield at the time. And then after that, we moved to, Benjamin was born in 94. We moved down to Seymour and had 5 acres and lived down there for a little while.
No cows?
No. That's funny. My sister and I both said that was grounds for divorce if our husbands decided to milk cows. We lived there for a while, and I did. My sister and I ran a carriage company. We had 4 horses and 4 carriages. And we did a Amish tour ride through the Amish community that we lived next to, or in the middle of. And I drove a school bus. I worked at H.D. Lee, which was a blue jean sewing factory. I did all that at the same time.
At the same time? What do you mean?
Well, when I drove a school bus, Melissa and I did it together, so we had one route, we shared it, and we'd work the tour rides. So if we had somebody there to take a tour, one of us would take the tour and the other one would run in and drive the school bus. We'd kind of just bounce back and forth, depending on who was doing what at the time.
I see.
And then in the summertime, when I went driving a school bus, that's when I worked at H.D. Lee, sewing. And I only did that for a short period because H.D. Lee, the plant closed there in Seymour. And I went back to driving a school bus and driving horses. Hauling hay. So we did that until my son, let me think, Zachariah would have been in 2nd grade. So 94, he was 6, 7, so what's that, 94, that'd be 2000. My brain. About 2000 was when we moved to Marshfield. Bought a house and moved to Marshfield. Because I worked, by that time, I worked at the bank in Marshfield full time.
When did you start there? Before you moved to Marshfield?
Yeah, just about probably a year before. So
90, let's just say
yeah,
99.
because Benjamin went to kindergarten in Seymour, and then we moved to Marshfield after that.
What'd you do at the bank? Teller?
Teller, and then I was a loan processor. And I worked there for probably close to 3 years. Started driving a school bus from Marshfield to... See, it's kind of, I try to work up my resume. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It doesn't, I'm just trying to get the big
No,
picture.
I'm
It's
just
not
saying,
super
I have
details.
3 different resumes, because I have one for the floral designing and one for banking and business or clerical,
Right.
and then one for driving. So I started driving a school bus while I worked at the bank. I drove a bus in the morning, and then I'd work at the bank in the afternoon.
And that was Marshfield School Bus?
Mm-hmm. And I drove for Marshfield for 9 years. I worked for the bank just on and off whenever they needed me for probably 2 more years. And then I'd drive the school bus, and then I worked at a floral shop in Fairgrove. Oh no, sorry. I worked at Sam's, in Sam's floral department in Springfield for that.
Where's this, Springfield?
So on East Sunshine, or yeah, East Sunshine. I'd come drive the school bus, and then I'd come to Springfield and work, and then I'd go back and drive the school bus.
So when did you start working at City Utilities?
I've only been there 10 years, so it'll be 10 years this August, so
12.
2012. I drove a school bus in Mississippi also. Worked at a floral shop in Mississippi also.